Hey everybody, this is Alex Krupski back for episode 10, double digits of the Millennials in Print podcast.
Woo!
Again with Jake Hoffman. Finally did it, double digits. And we have a very special guest in Joe Lyman today. He is the president of the GLGA, which is the Great Lakes Graphics Association, located in Pewaukee, pretty close to us. They're an industry advocacy organization. Not going to steal too much away from Joe explaining everything, but I read online it represents about 12% of the print industry market share. Is that right?
In terms of economics, it's about 12% of the total volume
Got it.
created
Okay.
throughout the United States.
We just
So
got to
pretty
throw a nice
significant.
stat in there,
Yeah,
get
definitely.
the people interested.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining the show today. Really appreciate it.
I feel privileged. Thank you so much, Jake and Alex, for inviting me today, and I look forward to being able to interact with you.
Great. Well, I think for our curiosity and our audience, let's start off with really how you got into print and then ultimately became the leader of the GLGA.
Oh, geez. Okay. So I'm a trade association professional. I've been doing this for 30 years, about 30 years. And so my experience has always been with nonprofits, but the common thread of this has always been that wherever I was in terms of representing an industry, I always did the publications. So I kind of grind my teeth on the blue lines, old school, being able to develop products and services, whether it be self-publications or, industry advocacy, publications, or maybe it's books or postcards or whatever type of promotional material. I was always involved with the printer. So early on, a lot of the printers would invite me in to show me exactly how it was made, to make sure I understood. I understood the checks on what needs to happen and the quality, obviously. And so that's kind of my common thread to joining the print industry.
Yeah.
So I've been with the association for 11 years, and we represent printers, finisher, binder, converters, tag and label manufacturers, and packagers throughout the three-state region: Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin.
So interesting. You sort of started as an end user of print, and then now you're the president of print.
Absolutely. And so as I continue my journey, and I'm still learning, right? We still learn every single day. And now there's inkjet, and now there's digital automation that we need to accommodate for things like labor shortages and even paper. We were talking about paper, doing things more efficiently. So the whole idea is, my education journey continues on, whether it be tag and label or process like flexography, or even in terms of converting, marrying two different types of material together. So it's been exciting.
So, obviously we've been to a few of the events over the years, golf outings and other sorts of events. Obviously, you guys also do the GEA Awards as well. And that's coming up in the next few weeks. What are some of the other ways that I guess you serve as an industry advocate?
Absolutely. So one of the best things we do is kind of a daily thing. So I know both of you probably receive ask a member questions. So here's an opportunity for people to be able to ask questions anonymously. A lot of times they're not looking for necessarily an answer. What they're looking for is direction or guidance. So it can range everything from HR issues. Obviously, we have the MRA that's available to be able to support our members. But it might be about color correction, or it might be about shipping or costs, or how you handle sales. A lot of times, it is a day-to-day type of thing that we do. We also do advocacy. Obviously, the past year has been pretty difficult with a lot of companies with COVID. So we work together with the Department of Administrations on all three states to make sure that our industry can continue to be operating and profitable. So a big thing is, if you're not available to do the work, you can't get into your building because of a mandate or a lockdown. That's hard. So one of the things we've been doing for the past year and a half now, I guess it's been a year and a half, is just working together with the government to make sure that our members can continue to be open and available to do the work.
And did that kind of fall under that essential business bucket then? Is
Absolutely.
that sort of what that?
I think within the Midwest, a lot of other states consider printers different, right? Their graphic arts or their communication, but we have consistently over the years continued to reinforce the idea that our members are manufacturers. And so manufacturing is an essential product. And you can't really divide it out, right? How can you say that a tag, a label that goes on a water bottle, or maybe it's a package like a cereal, that you eat.
Yeah.
How do you divide that from an essential product like a publication that might be educating somebody on maybe it's lockdowns or
COVID regulations?
I mean, one of the biggest mailers ever done was by the Trump administration on the postcard, or the threefold. I should say it's the threefold.
Okay.
But it was mailed out, and I believe it was hundreds of millions of
Pieces.
These pieces were mailed out. It was incredible. So
yeah, it's interesting because I think sometimes print it's such a big thing.
it is.
And so it's even interesting too because I think a lot of times it's kind of almost whitewashed as the print industry, and there's so many different variables of print that it's like, oh, print's declining, or oh, print's growing, and it's almost like you have to get very specific with what type of print you're talking about. If you're talking about newspaper circulars,
Right.
yes, that's declining. But if you're talking about some of these other newer mediums like you had mentioned, going a completely different direction,
Right. So I'm going to use an adjective that
Sure.
I use a lot, which is the print industry's honking big. It just
Honking big.
Honking big.
I like it.
It's
There's our tagline.
It's a $165 billion a year
Yeah,
industry,
which is
bigger
just
than automotive,
massive.
and 750,000 workers throughout the industry. So even here, as you mentioned, Alex, a little while ago, you said 12%. We represent 12% of the total shipments shipped throughout the United States, just our 3 states. And then on top of that, it generates somewhere around $19 billion just in our 3 states. So it is,
It's
talk
crazy.
about packaging. Packaging is
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest areas here in the Fox Valley, tag and label manufacturing, as well as packaging. It's just unbelievable. You look around and you can almost throw a stone and hit a printer.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
here, you can.
Yeah.
Crazy.
There's it seems everywhere. Could you touch maybe a little bit on just for our listeners? I think it would be good to understand sort of where that rich print history comes from, especially in sort of the tri-region that you're talking
Absolutely.
about.
So it's kind of like supply chain logistics nowadays, right? You'll move to where you can get your material. Well, this has always been a very large area for, for creating paper, right? For manufacturing paper.
A lot of trees.
It just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of printers, and plus this is a very German-rich heritage here in the Midwest. A lot of Germans brought over printing when they immigrated. Papers are readily available, and all of a sudden you have an industry. So some of the first promotional products that were printed here in the United States were things like lottery tickets. So I believe the first mayor of Milwaukee actually had a lottery, and he printed the tickets. So I mean,
No
great,
kidding.
Great,
Well,
yeah,
great story. Though.
Great, yeah, it's Juneau, right? It's Governor Juneau, but he, he's getting it for both sides, right? He's got the lottery tickets and he has the political donations. So, needless to say, it just emerged from that.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's such a rich history in print. I mean, you can go back to 1800s, 1700s, even further back if you go outside of America. So I think that's just an incredible part of it too. And seeing some printers kind of take advantage and really embrace that history, I think is something that's really cool and important. What are some of the trends, I guess, that you're seeing, especially over the course of the last year or two? COVID changed a lot. But what are some of the trends recently that you've seen kind of in the industry working with so many print partners?
So on the customer side, obviously personalization, and we just talked about that, Jake, in terms of being able to pinpoint your customer and being able to appeal to their particular demographic or their particular ideas or likings. Obviously on the production side, on the printer side, it's inkjet, right? So the whole idea is how can you do things more efficiently at smaller runs to be able to accommodate that customization. But in terms of overall growth, we continue to see nothing's necessarily dying. Print will never die.
Right.
We always say print will go away because we don't have enough workers to actually produce it.
Yeah.
We were just, again, speaking
on
about
this,
labor shortages, right?
Yeah.
We see a big pinch in terms of being able to find people that are available and willing to work. But, you see product lines that are obviously increasing. I think most publications, books, what have you, are pretty stable. You see packaging and tag and label and laminations skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting what's happening. And again, it's all print. It's all print. This bottle, if you tried to sell it without a label on it, more than likely
It'd be tough.
wouldn't move. So, or a package or whatever it is, or
Yeah.
a magazine without impressions. So you have to have the actual print, the impressions, to be able to market that piece and for it to be useful.
Well, we had Austin Meisner on, I think, in episode 7 over at Color Inc., and he kind of talked about the packaging part of their business just absolutely
booming.
blowing up right now. I think that's an interesting opportunity, too, for printers to evolve their businesses internally, no matter what side they're in right now.
Absolutely. Even I think in your terms of your business, at some point your customers are going to start to ask, can you do other types of work? I think you're already seeing it. Even if it's not that you do the work yourself, but partnering with somebody, a joint venture, to be able to do that work for you. So I think dimensional work will continue to increase, personalization, more effects. So sometimes those effects are very labor intensive, and even more so take a lot of time to be able to create in terms of the dyes or the embossing, what have you. Nowadays, I mean, you can buy that piece of equipment, whether it be, is it okay to mention particular companies?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Like MGI or Skodix or what have you. I mean, to do the embellishment. And the embellishment is so important. I know that we had a call, Randall was doing a product that was foil stamped on the front cover. And so you were looking for partners to be able to do that particular cover.
Yep.
I mean, it's just super important now to be able to appeal to your customer base.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think with the sort of advancements in technology, one of the other things that we're seeing from our perspective is a lot of technology that's hopefully going to help automate and help sort of cut maybe that labor shortage a little bit to some degree. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. You're going to need more people in the industry.
Well, and everybody's feeling it too.
Every-
right?
yeah,
it's not just
the
print,
print,
but yeah.
And you're seeing all these software companies that are now doing things like shareable libraries, right?
Yeah.
So if you you might do a job, and if you could save that job and be able to do that job over and over again, but it might be 3 years down the road. If you can save that job as a preset someplace else, be able to put it on, the piece of equipment. And I think that's where we're going with equipment. It's going to be extremely intuitive and driven by artificial intelligence to be able to accommodate for labor shortages.
One thing, going back to kind of the GLGA and serving as a print advocacy organization, and we've had this conversation multiple times too with other guests. One thing that has struck me in my short time in the industry is the sense of community that I think even competing companies have in sharing ideas with each other and talking about their businesses. Do you get that same sense as well, being?
Absolutely. And I think that the industry has grown a lot in terms of becoming more mature. And what I mean by that is, 30 or 40 years ago, somebody stole a job from you and you were going to grind an axe against them
Forever.
Right? Forever. And now some of those companies, there's new owners, there's new leadership, there's new management. Oftentimes they're younger and they say, I don't really care about that. I have to get this done. So it's kind of interesting. People want to share. Even our Ask a Member questions, right? So I just saw one when I walked in. People want the answer, but they don't want to be identified as the person asking it or answering it. And a lot of times that causes people to say, I do want to answer that question because I want the answer, or I want everybody to answer it so that I can find out what that source or guidance is.
Right.
And I think that's a super awesome just platform to have, because with so many new customers and so many, to your point, younger people getting into even management roles within print organizations, there's some complexity. There's inherent complexity into what we're doing. So having a forum where people can ask questions anonymously is probably great, right?
Well, and one of the things we found is obviously we have to change with the times. It's not just you guys that are trying to figure out customization of variable data, or whether it's, inkjet, what technology is going to be able to serve your customer best. We have to change as well for our customers. So one of the things that has been tough over the past maybe 10 years is the advent of virtual, right? It is providing people the opportunity to do things online, whether it be like this podcast, or whether it be the member ask a member, or maybe it's just resources they can get to, but they don't need to necessarily call you. They want to go online, they want to find it themselves, and that's fine. We have a lot of those resources available for people. If you don't see it, ask us, because more than likely, if we don't have the answer immediately, we can find the answer with our network of printers and professionals throughout the industry.
We're getting into the push-pull of information, right? So everyone's, so time-sensitive. It's a time-driven economy. So one of the things that we're really working on, and it's, I think, similar with a lot of print companies, is how do we start pushing information to our customers instead of making them go out and try to pull the information that they need. But again, it's just trying to evolve with customer needs and the times.
Well, it used to be an advantage, right? So if you looked 30 or 40 years ago, sales clubs were very important, right? So somebody would come with a job, a print job. They would sell it, and they would say, here's the print job. And they would say, who's going to do the rips? Who's going to do the plates? Who's going to do the binding, the folding and binding? Who's going to do the finishing? And so they sold these jobs, and they would come back around 3 weeks later and say, okay, that job's done. Now we have another job to do. And really, the printers had the opportunity to be the single source provider. And it was good because printers did very well with being able to serve their customers, right? They were the single source provider. Nowadays, there are so many ways that you can find that information that unfortunately sometimes printers find themselves in ways of, hey, we have to change the way we do business because there's CTP now, and there's folders and bindery units in the back. And so we have to work smarter and just have better, this one of the things we talked about, having a better source of vendors that you work with on a routine basis.
And I think you're always going to have some additional vendors to work with when you need an addition.
I mean, there's anything that could happen. A machine goes down. There's just so many scenarios, right? And so we've always kind of taken the stance of, we've got great partnerships with great vendors that understand our quality, understand our service model, and have had great relationships. And it's a reciprocal relationship because people are going to get asked to do stuff that they can't do. So they're going to say, hey, here's who we would recommend. Just like every other day we're getting asked, hey, can you guys do this? Well, it doesn't really fit us, but maybe here's a better place to start looking.
Right.
So.
Well, I know one of the things that you've been working on for the past several years is the idea of being that single source provider for marketing and answering a lot of questions, right? So that you don't necessarily have to go out to a vendor to say, hey, look, we're in a jam. I have a customer that needs this marketing done. And so I think that's one of the other ways that the industry is changing.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think customers, when you start hearing these common questions that customers are asking or a common need, you're probably getting into a position where the majority of your customers have this need and they just want it answered in a single source. So that's not to say that we're going to start building AI robots anytime soon or anything like that. But, I think you can't be everything to everyone. But at the same time, I think sticking with core competencies, there's obviously some additional opportunity there.
Well, you've brought that up, being the single source provider, but always needing to have vendor relationships too. Of all the successful printers that you've worked with, met with, whatever, what is it about them? What is the pattern between a company that knows its niche and tries to be the provider for their clients, but also knows that it can't be the be-all, end-all fit for everything? I think that's such an interesting balance.
Right, it is. And so it's kind of like coaching, right? So you've had a bad half, football. It's just a football analogy. You've had a bad half.
We like
Midwest, baby.
Yeah, right.
So
go Pack, go.
You go into the locker room and you adjust, and you have to come out in the second half and be able to say, this is the scenario that I'm faced with, and so I have to adjust, whether it be company or vendors or what have you, to be able to find the right solutions. So the best companies are not great printers. I'm not going to say that people aren't great printers. It's just that the quality is up there now that you can't just necessarily go and say, I'm a great quality printer.
Right.
Now you have to say, and also I do these things. And really it's about, I think what they say, the best thing to be in business is a middleman. So being able to introduce your your customers to vendor solution providers that can help them with their needs, it just makes you a better company.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
I think one thing that would be good to touch on for, I don't know who wouldn't be, but for people who aren't already a part of the GLGA, how can people join? How do people join up? Like, what information do they need? This is like your sales pitch. Right?
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, we do a varied number of things. So it's over 108 services and benefits that we regularly provide to customers, whether it be wage and benefit or economic reports, or whether it be opportunities to get together. So one of the things that I'm proud of, obviously I didn't have much to do with it, but kind of putting the connections together, right? So Jake called me and said, I'd like to put a printers under 40.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Yep.
So that's great. Austin Meisner has the exact same idea. Why don't you guys get together and put the peanut butter and chocolate, to be able to do this, and away we go. But it is really about building community. So what we hope to be able to do is, obviously Randall's needs are a lot different from other people's needs, but we look at that 108 different types of services we do and say, these are the things that are going to benefit you the most. And so people can join. I think it's extremely affordable. It's tax deductible, right? So what could be
finance guys?
Businesses love that.
So it's tax deductible. I think that 95% of it is tax deductible. What's not deductible is obviously the political things that we do. So
Sure.
again,
Sure.
we have to still engage with the state and pay money to do things like that, but everything else is deductible, and it's probably one of the best things you can do for your business. And the best way to join is just to go to glga.info and learn about us and be able to understand exactly what we do. And no matter what age you are, no matter what professional level you are, no matter what kind of company you are, we can make you better. We can make you more efficient, more effective, and more profitable.
I love that.
Awesome.
Love that. Honestly, I think we covered pretty much everything. Jake, did you have anything else?
No,
Joe?
I think the one thing that I would say is, thank you for putting peanut butter and chocolate together. Me and Austin. No, it's been the support.
Conrad too. Conrad as well.
Paper guy. No, just kidding. Conrad too. But no, it's been awesome just having your support on the printers under 40 thing. There's no way that we'd be able, as even far along in the process as we are. We're still pretty new, but yeah, the support's been awesome from you guys, so we really appreciate that.
Well, that's what we do. Thank you for getting involved, because without you, we wouldn't have an industry, right?
Well, let's hope not.
Leave it all in Jake's hands.
Yeah,
and
please
Conrad's.
don't.
Oh boy. Well, yeah. Thanks again, Joe. Any final thoughts before we end the show?
Absolutely. Print's future is bright.
Yeah,
I think it still continues to be bright. We just need affordable energy. We need a good labor force, and we need supplies.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're going to do fantastic in the future.
And being a part of the GLGA and working with them, going to help every printer in the tri-state area. So
absolutely.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much
Thanks
for coming
again,
on.
Joe.
Really appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having me.
Thanks again, you guys at home, and we'll see you in episode 12. Thanks, guys.